She didn't just vandalize my property, she thought she was untouchable. The HOA president smashed my visitor's truck in broad daylight, shouting threats like the rules didn't apply to her. That confidence vanished the second I calmly said one sentence. Just so you know, he's the district attorney. What happened next was pure panic, and it exposed just how dangerous a little HOA power can be when it's abused. I knew something was wrong the moment I heard the crash. It wasn't the soft thud of a door closing too hard or the metallic rattle of a shopping cart tipping over. This was sharp, violent, metal meeting metal with intent. I was in my kitchen, coffee halfway to my lips, when the sound echoed down the cul-de-sac like a gunshot. I stepped onto my front porch, just in time to see her. The HOA president stood in my driveway, gripping a tire iron like it was a badge of office. She was mid-swing, her arm cocked back, face twisted with the kind of righteous fury only small power can produce. The visitor's truck, parked legally, clean, and unmistakably new, already wore a spiderweb of cracks across the windshield. One side mirror dangled by its wires, swaying slightly in the cold morning air. "Hey!" I shouted. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she brought the tire iron down again. The sound made my stomach drop. For context, this wasn't some abandoned beater cluttering the street. The truck belonged to my guest, someone who had arrived less than 10 minutes earlier. He'd parked exactly where the HOA rules said visitors could park. No blocking driveways, no fire lanes, no violations, none that mattered to her, anyway. She finally turned toward me, eyes blazing, lips pulled tight in a smug line. "This vehicle is not approved," she snapped. "I've told you before, your guests don't get special treatment." I glanced around. Curtains twitched. Garage doors paused halfway up. Neighbors were watching, pretending not to. "Put the tire iron down," I said, keeping my voice level. "You're damaging private property." She laughed. Actually laughed. "I am the HOA, and this truck is in violation." Another neighbor stepped outside, phone already raised. She noticed and smiled wider. That's when I realized this wasn't about rules. This was about humiliation. She wanted an audience. I walked down the driveway slowly, hands visible, heart pounding, not with fear but disbelief. You can't just destroy someone's vehicle because you feel like it. "Oh, I can," she replied. "And if you don't like it, you're welcome to take it up with the board." The board. A group of retirees who met once a month to argue about lawn height and mailbox colors. The truck's owner stepped out beside me then. Calm. Composed. He hadn't said a word yet, just observed, like someone watching a case file assemble itself in real time. She didn't recognize him. She raised the tire iron again, this time aiming for the hood. That's when I spoke. "Before you do that," I said, "there's something you should know." She rolled her eyes. "Oh? Another empty threat." I looked her dead in the face. "That truck belongs to the district attorney." Silence hit like a wall. Her arm froze midair. The confidence drained from her expression so fast it was almost physical, like blood rushing out of a wound. Her eyes flicked from me to him, then back again, searching for the punchline that never came. He finally spoke, his voice calm, almost polite. "Good morning." The tire iron slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the concrete. In that moment, every rule she'd ever abused, every threat she'd ever made, every neighbor she'd bullied, none of it mattered anymore. Because for the first time, her power had limit. And she knew it. The silence didn't last long. It never does when panic sets in. The HOA president, Karen in a navy blazer she treated like a uniform, straightened her posture as if dignity could be reassembled by force. "That's irrelevant," she said too quickly. "No one is above community bylaws." The district attorney looked down at the spider-cracked windshield, then at the dent blooming across the hood. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look angry. That scared her more than shouting ever could. "I'm actually very interested in bylaws," he said calmly. "Especially the ones concerning vandalism, criminal mischief, and abuse of authority. A few phones were fully out now. No more pretending. Neighbors clustered at the edges of their driveways, drawn by the gravity of a situation finally tipping out of Karen's control. She laughed again, short, brittle. "This is a civil matter." He nodded. "It was. About 30 seconds ago." She turned to me, eyes sharp. "Tell him to move the truck. Now." I didn't answer. Instead, I watched her hand. They were shaking. The DA pulled out his phone, not dramatically, not for show. Just efficient. He took photos. Close UPS. Wide shots. The tire iron on the ground. The HOA insignia stitched onto her blazer pocket. Then he looked up. "Do you mind saying your name again?" Her mouth opened. Closed. "You already know who I am." "I'd like you to say it," he replied. She glanced around, realizing too late that this wasn't a private confrontation she could intimidate her way through. "I'm the president of the HOA," she snapped. He smiled faintly. "Perfect." She took a step back. "This neighborhood has rules. And you people." That was as far as she got. "Careful," he said quietly. The word landed heavy. She swallowed. "I'm calling the HOA attorney." "I recommend you also call your personal one," he said. "And maybe your insurance company." A police cruiser rolled into the cul-de-sac 5 minutes later. Someone must have called, maybe more than one someone. The flashing lights reflected off the damaged glass, painting the scene in red and blue. Karen visibly sagged with relief when she saw the uniform. "Authority. Backup." She rushed toward the officer. "Thank God you're here. This man is trespassing and threatening me." The officer raised a hand. "Ma'am, let's slow down." The DA introduced himself, showing his badge and credentials. The officer's posture changed instantly, not exaggerated, just respectful. Attentive. Karen noticed. Her voice wavered. "He's lying. That truck was illegally parked." The officer looked at the curb markings, then at the posted HOA signage, then at the damage. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "did you strike this vehicle?" She hesitated. That was enough. "Yes," she said finally. "But I was enforcing community rules." The officer exhaled. "Step over here, please." She turned pale. "You're not arresting me." "No one said that," he replied. "Yet." The word "yet" crushed her. By the time the cruiser left, Karen wasn't in cuffs, but she wasn't smiling either. She'd been issued a citation, formally warned, and informed that charges could follow pending review. The DA shook the officer's hand, thanked him, and turned to me. "I'll have my office follow up. Don't worry about the truck." Karen watched us from her driveway, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. Or exposed. Or both. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for that evening. She didn't cancel it. That was her second mistake. The clubhouse was packed. Standing room only. People who'd never attended before showed up early, whispering, exchanging looks, clutching phones full of video clip. Karen sat at the front table, jaw clenched, flanked by board members who suddenly wouldn't meet her eyes. When public comment opened, hands shot up. One by one, neighbors stood and spoke. About fines. About threats. About intimidation. About selective enforcement. And then I stood. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I simply recounted the morning, calmly, factually, and ended with one sentence. She used HOA authority to commit a crime. The room went silent. Karen slammed her gavel. "This meeting is adjourned." "No," said someone in the back. "It isn't." The board members exchanged looks. One cleared his throat. "Actually, per our bylaws, a motion to remove an officer can be raised immediately in cases of misconduct." Karen's head snapped toward him. "You can't be serious." He was. The vote wasn't close. When it was over, Karen sat frozen, staring at the table where her power had lived for years. Gone. As people filed out, the DA leaned toward me. "Funny thing about bullies," he said quietly. "They always assume no one's watching." I glanced back at Karen, alone now, staring at a gavel that no longer meant anything. She finally understood. And it was far too late. The police arrived faster than I expected. 2 cruisers rolled into the cul-de-sac within 15 minutes, lights flashing but sirens off, the kind of arrival that already knew how this was going to end. By then, the HOA president was pacing near the sidewalk, arms wrapped tightly around herself, rehearsing excuses under her breath. The tire iron sat exactly where it had fallen, untouched, like evidence that knew it didn't need help. Neighbors had fully emerged now. Phones were out. Whispers traveled faster than the winter wind. One officer stepped toward me first. "We got a report of property damage." I nodded and gestured to the truck. "That's correct." Before I could say anything else, she rushed forward. "Officer, this vehicle is in violation of HOA regulations. I was enforcing community rules." The officer glanced at the shattered windshield, the dented hood, the dangling mirror. His eyebrow lifted slightly. "With a tire iron?" She faltered. I needed to prevent further violations." The second officer had walked over to the truck's owner. They spoke quietly for a moment. No raised voices. No drama. Just calm, professional conversation. Then the officer nodded and walked back, his demeanor shifting from neutral to precise. "Ma'am," he said, turning to the HOA president, "do you understand that this is criminal vandalism?" Her mouth opened, closed. "I'm the HOA president," she said weakly. "I have authority." "Not over criminal law," he replied. That's when the district attorney pulled a card from his wallet and handed it over, not with arrogance, not with threat, just matter of fact. The officer didn't even need to look closely. Recognition crossed his face instantly. "Yes, sir." The shift was subtle, but it was there. The HOA president saw it too. Her knees buckled slightly, and she reached out, steadying herself on a mailbox that wasn't hers. "This is all a misunderstanding," she said, her voice suddenly small. "We can resolve this internally." The DA shook his head. "No. We can't." He turned to the officers. "I'm not here in any official capacity today. I'm a private citizen whose property was deliberately damaged." That sentence landed harder than any threat could have. One of the officers pulled out his notebook. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step over here." She panicked then, true panic. "You don't understand what this will do to me," she pleaded. "My position, my reputation." "You should have considered that before you picked up the tire iron," the officer said calmly. As they guided her aside, I noticed something else. The neighbors weren't just watching anymore. They were nodding. Quietly. Some with relief. Some with vindication. This wasn't her first incident. While statements were taken and photos snapped, word spread like wildfire. People came forward, one by one. Parking fines that never existed. Threatening letters. Trespassing inspections. Selective enforcement aimed only at people who questioned her. Patterns emerged. By the time the officers were done, the scene had transformed from a single act of vandalism into something much bigger. They placed her in handcuffs gently, almost apologetically, but firmly. The click echoed louder than the crash that started it all. As they walked her toward the cruiser, she locked eyes with me. There was no anger left, just shock. And something else, fear. The kind that comes when consequences finally arrive. The truck was towed for assessment. Charges were filed. And before the cruisers even left the street, 3 HOA board members were already calling, panicked, stumbling over their words, desperate to distance themselves. The district attorney turned to me afterward. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah." He smiled slightly. "Good. Because this isn't over." He was right. It wasn't. But for the first time since I'd moved into that neighborhood, the balance of power had shifted. And everyone could feel it. The HOA president's confidence didn't just crack, it collapsed. The moment the words, "district attorney," left my mouth, her posture changed completely. Her shoulders stiffened, her jaw unclenched, and the rage drained from her face so fast it was almost unsettling. 1 second she was a tyrant smashing a truck window with righteous fury, the next she looked like someone who had just realized they'd stepped into traffic. She laughed nervously. "Oh, well, I didn't know that," she said, suddenly softer, suddenly reasonable. "This doesn't need to be a big thing." But it was already a big thing. The DA, my visitor, hadn't said a word yet. He didn't need to. He stood there calmly, hands in his coat pockets, surveying the damage like a professional crime scene. Shattered glass glittered on the pavement. A deep dent caved in the driver's side door. Scratches ran across the paint where she dragged her keys with deliberate force. "This is criminal mischief," he finally said, voice level. Not threatening, not emotional, just factual. Her eyes flicked to me, then back to him. I was enforcing HOA rules." He raised an eyebrow. "HOA rules don't override state law." That's when the crowd really started paying attention. Neighbors who had been peeking through curtains came out onto their porches. Phones appeared. Whispers spread. Someone muttered, "Isn't that the HOA president?" Another voice followed, louder this time. "Did she smash his truck?" She tried to regain control. "Old habits die hard. You're not authorized to park here," she snapped, grasping for power. "Visitors must." He cut her off. "You vandalized my vehicle. On video. In front of witnesses." Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. "I can call the police," she said weakly. He nodded. "Please do." That was the moment she truly froze. Because for the first time, she understood something very important. She wasn't in charge anymore. Someone else made the call. Not her. A neighbor she'd fined twice last summer for leaving trash bins out too long. He didn't look at her when he dialed. Just stared at the broken glass, a small smile tugging at his lips. While we waited, the DA asked a few simple questions. Who saw it happen? How long ago? Were there cameras nearby? Hands went up. People spoke. Stories spilled out. "She's done this kind of thing before. She threatened to tow my car once because she didn't like where I parked. She bangs on doors like she owns the place." The picture that formed wasn't flattering. By the time the police arrived, the HOA president had shrunk into herself. She stood off to the side, arms crossed tightly, no longer barking orders. When the officers asked what happened, she tried one last tactic. "I felt threatened," she said. The officer glanced at the DA. Then at the truck. Then at her. "Threatened how?" he asked. She gestured vaguely. "They were violating HOA regulations." The officer sighed. "Ma'am, that doesn't justify property damage." One officer took photos. Another collected statements. The DA calmly explained who he was, careful not to grandstand, careful not to intimidate. He didn't need to. The badge and the broken window spoke for themselves. When they asked if he wanted to press charges, he paused. "I do," he said. "But more importantly, I want this documented." Her head snapped up. "Charge?" "Yes," he replied. "Actions have consequences." She tried to apologize then. A rushed, hollow apology filled with excuses. Stress. Misunderstanding. HOA pressure. None of it landed. As the officers led her aside to continue questioning, the neighborhood felt different. Lighter. Like something heavy had finally been named. People lingered after the police left. Conversations sparked. Neighbors who'd barely spoken before exchanged knowing looks. And as the DA thanked me for the heads up and headed toward his hotel, he said something quietly that stuck with me. People like her rely on everyone believing they're untouchable. Today, that illusion cracked. I watched the tow truck haul away her authority, one incident report at a time. And I knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the HOA's reckoning. By the time the police arrived, the HOA president's confidence had completely evaporated. The woman who had been screaming about authority and rules just minutes earlier now stood rigid beside the shattered remains of my visitor's truck, arms crossed tightly as if she could physically hold herself together. The DA, still calm, still composed, was already on the phone, quietly explaining the situation to someone on the other end. He hadn't raised his voice once. He didn't need to. An officer walked the scene slowly, eyes moving from the spiderwebbed windshield to the deep dents along the door. The damage wasn't minor. This wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. When the officer asked who owned the vehicle, my visitor stepped forward and identified himself. Then he handed over his ID. The shift was immediate. The officer's posture straightened. His tone changed, not deferential, but noticeably more careful. He stepped aside, spoke quietly into his radio, and within minutes a supervisor was on the way. The HOA president noticed it too. You could see the realization creeping in, piece by piece, as the story she'd been rehearsing in her head began to collapse. She tried to interrupt, insisting the truck was illegally parked, and that she was enforcing community standards. The officer stopped her mid-sentence. Calmly, firmly, he asked if she understood that damaging private property was a criminal offense, regardless of her position in the HOA. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. Witnesses started coming forward. Neighbors who had watched from porches. A delivery driver who had been turning around at the time. Someone had even recorded part of the incident on their phone. The narrative was no longer hers to control. When the supervisor arrived, the DA finally ended his call and identified himself formally. No dramatics, no threats, just facts. He explained that he was visiting as a private citizen, that his vehicle had been vandalized, and that multiple witnesses were present. The supervisor nodded, already taking note. That's when the HOA president broke. Her voice wavered as she tried to walk it back, claiming stress, misunderstanding, a bad day. She asked if this could be handled internally. The answer was simple, no. HOAs don't get to handle crimes internally. Titles don't override the law. A citation was issued on the spot. Criminal mischief. Restitution was discussed. Insurance information was exchanged under the watchful eye of law enforcement. And just like that, the illusion of untouchable power was gone. Word spread through the neighborhood fast. By that evening, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Board members distancing themselves. Neighbors apologizing for not speaking up sooner. One person quietly admitted that this wasn't the first time the HOA president had crossed a line, just the first time she'd done it to the wrong person. Within days, an emergency HOA meeting was called. She didn't attend. A week later, she resigned. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. For years, she'd ruled through intimidation, assuming no one would challenge her. She confused compliance with respect and authority with immunity. All it took was one moment, one sentence, to expose how fragile that power really was. He's the district attorney. Those words didn't change the truth. They just made it impossible to ignore. In the end, this wasn't about revenge or status. It was about accountability. About the reminder that no neighborhood rulebook outranks the law, and no self-appointed enforcer gets to decide who matters and who doesn't. The truck was repaired. The charges moved forward. And the neighborhood? It's quieter now. Not because people are afraid, but because the person who thrived on fear no longer holds the gavel. And that might be the most satisfying outcome of all.